Mia, thank you very much for joining on this conversation with CarbonWire. First of all, very hearty congratulations for winning the competition. How does it feel getting recognized?
I mean, it was really great experience for me. So I can share that that was my first time in India. Yes, to join the competitions. I had many friends and I also know a lot of, like partners and peoples. And we still talking till today.
That's great. Wonderful. So can you share something about AirXCarbon? I mean, what exactly are you trying to solve? I mean, what are the pressing challenges that you see around, particularly in terms of plastic waste, and what's your business model?
Yes. Okay, so I think I can share that AirXCarbon is a company that was founded back to 2020. And at that time, we have a really clear and focused visions. We want to turn waste into world-class solutions. So the original insight came from very simple observations, which is vast amount of organics and industrial waste was being underutilized while the industry, especially in South Asia, continue to rely on virgin and like carbon intensive materials like plastics. So we actually start with spent coffee ground. So like the coffee when you have the coffee, then there are the waste spent coffee ground. So do you know that globally coffee consumption generate around 6 to 8 million tons of like waste annually? So in Vietnam, most of which is landfilled or incinerated. So when we see that, we want to turn the coffee waste into biomaterials. And from that biomaterial, we can use to produce, like everyday products like coffee cup, cutlery, mask, or clothes hanger, or a flower vase. So as our biomaterial R&D capability advanced through the years, we realized that the opportunity extended far beyond coffee waste. So we expanded to other agri-waste source like coconut hulls, coffee hulls, and sugarcane bagaces. And for that, it's actually bigger waste compared to just coffee waste. And in Vietnam alone, there are over 159 million tons of agri-waste per year, and 80% is simply burned or dumped. So in 2024, like 2 years ago, we launched a new product called Net Zero Pallets. So the pallets, like the platform people use to store and to move goods globally, and 80% of global trade move on pallets. However, it's remained largely invisible to the supply chain. So we want to produce net zero pallets using over 90% of agricultural waste, and we transform the low-value biomass into high-performance logistics product. And we started in 2024 in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. And since today, we actually expanded to many countries. We exported to the US, Australia, Japan, South Korea, also Singapore, India, and the Philippines. So our vision actually evolved from developing sustainable material to building scalable platform that turn waste into high-performance logistics solutions.
So, from a commercial standpoint, how does it work? I mean, you said it's scalable, but is it economical also? I mean, because a lot of sustainable or sustainability related products sometimes, have a cost disadvantage, at least in the initial
It is.
phases. So, in your case, I mean, how does it go? I mean, is it economical to produce something like this?
Yes. So you're right. For the climate tech companies or any sustainable company like us, people always think it's going to be expensive products. But I can say that we think about the cost perception when we design the products, because we've been talking with some customer on the first day we design the products. Even when the economics are competitive, many companies still think and still assume that sustainable product come at the premium. So part of our job is to, build the product, not to build the product, but also prove that sustainability can also be cost effective. And with net zero pallet, it's actually 20 to 50% lower price compared to traditional wooden and plastic pallets. Because our net zero pallet is actually made from over 90% of agricultural waste, so it's biodegradable. we mix the agriculture waste with our bio binders that we develop in-house. So we actually performs a report called Life Cycle Assessment, or LCA, and it actually verified by Eurofin. And in that report, it states that for 1,000 net zero pallets, it captures 30 tons of CO2. And not only that, by avoid the harvesting of the wood to make, to make the wooden pallets, we can save 170 20-year-old pine trees or 1,500 5-year-old acacia trees. So if those trees can stay in the forest, it can absorb additional 170 tons of CO2. So yeah, we're not just greeners, we also like better price and like better carbon profile across its life cycle.
So how did you get to this area? I mean, and on a personal front, what kind of triggered you to get into this specific area?
So I definitely have co-founders who, like work with me in this. And I can share that we actually start with biomaterials. So that our core R&D and our core, like strength. And while we doing the biomaterial products, some client actually ask us, like, do you do pellet? Because we export the biomaterial to other country, like to Japan as well. So we ask, okay, like, can you do the pellet from biomaterials? So from that point, we just think about it for short times, but then, like time growth, and then we think back, yeah, why not we do, like pellet? Because for the pellets, we can upcycle more agriculture waste. If we do the coffee cup, it's just like small, but for the pellet, it's big. So we can capture more agriculture waste in the pellets.
So, circularity is often discussed at a very conceptual level. But in your case, I mean, how do you operationalize, some of the circular economy principles in when it comes to sourcing, manufacturing, and end of life?
We try to embed circularity in all of the, manufacturing and selling process. So I can share in terms of sourcing. First of all, we use locally available agriculture waste, as I mentioned, like coconut husk, coffee husk, or sugarcane bagasse, or we can use even hard to recycle materials. And then we turn them into valuable input for the pallet or for other, like biomaterial products. And I can share that at the same time, we are running a sourcing program, which means that we buy agriculture waste directly from farmers in the Mekong Delta or from the Central Highland in Vietnam. And by doing so, we give them additional and sustainable income. That's the sourcings. And then for the manufacturings, we use low energy production process. We do not generate wastewater at all. And the system is designed to be highly scalable and transferable. And starting next year, 2027, we actually have planned to transfer our technologies, like R&D and biomaterial technologies to other local manufacturing partners. So it means even smaller factory from different, provinces in Vietnam or in other country can now upcycle agriculture waste in their regions, and then they sell back the pellets or other biomaterial product to the local companies. And by doing so, we reduce transportation, lowering emissions, and we shorten the material loops. And also, the local company can use a pellet to export to other countries. And the last one is the reuse and the end of life. Our pellets are designed for multiple reuse. But then when it's the end of the life, they can bring the pellet back to the factories and we will, reprocess it into the new pellets. And in some case, we also enable a closed loop system, which means the companies we work with will give us the waste, like coconut husk or coffee husk, and then we make the pellet, we sell back to them. And in fact, we are working with really two big coconuts and coffee exporter in Vietnam to, like doing the closed loop productions.
Oh, wonderful. So, I mean, you touched upon this a little bit in terms of involving other companies in the region. I mean, giving your technology to them. But one of the biggest challenges most times in climate tech is always scaling. So, what are some of the key hurdles in moving from innovation to commercial adoption, especially when you are competing with very low cost conventional plastics?
Yes, I see. Yes, you're right. Scaling climate tech is never about technologies alone. I would suppose it's about the system challenge. So, from our perspective, we actually face three hurdles. The first hurdle is the cost. As I mentioned, many companies think and assume that sustainable product would be more expensive than traditional one. And in our case, we make it cheaper from 20 to 50% compared to the wood and the plastic pellets. The second hurdle I would say is industry inertia. The logistic, especially the logistic and manufacturing system, they are highly standardized and they are risk adverse, which means companies are reluctant to change a product or to change material. If they have to change their operation even slightly, they would not want to change. So for us, for net zero pellets, we design it as a drop-in replacement, which means that it's actually similar to wooden and plastic pellet in terms of performance, in terms of loading capacity and durability, so they can just change seamlessly without any, like change in operations. And the third challenge I would say is definitely capitals, because like manufacturing is require capital intensive, especially when you scale the productions rapidly. So to address this challenge, we building the technology transfer ecosystem, which means that we partner with local manufacturers who will co-invest with us. So we bring the technologies, the R&D, the expertise, and also the market, our customer, and then they can bring the capital and operations. So this allow us to scale into a more asset light modules, and at the same time, we are actually raising fund right now. In Singapore, we have a VC we're talking with in Singapore and in Europe, and probably we would close the fund soon this year or next year.
That sounds really great. So when you approach your prospective customers, now there is obviously a lot of pressure on industries to decarbonize. So when you speak to companies to access your products, is decarbonization at the top of their mind? Are they adopting these biodegradable pellets because of decarbonization, or is it because of convenience, cost? I mean, according to you, why do they choose this?
I think it actually depends on the companies. From our perspective, we see the shift between, like the companies. Today, I saw that many companies are more receptive than before. So let's say if we've been talking with 10 companies, around five are willing to, like pilot the product in their factories, and around one would buy the net zero pallets. That said, once they convert, they would stay for long term. So they become our long term partners. So ESG definitely the good beginning to, like to try the product, but the product, the quality, the performance of the product is the one who keep the customers. So I would say that our strategies has been focused on the forward thinking companies who are more conscious about ESGs, about circularity commitment. By approaching them, we would have the wood start. And these early adopter will help us to validate the product in the early days. And then when the leaders, the industry leader make the shift, other would follow them. So I can also share with you some, like information about AirXCarbon from a growth perspective. So we start in 2024, right? And at that time, we only have 14 customers. It's really hard to, like get them to pay for the net zero pallets. But until now, over 1 year, we have over 150 B2B clients. That means we grow like tenfold of our customers with that strategies. We also reach, like operational profitability last year's. So it's reinforced that the demand is there. We just need, like to find them.
So you feel very confident about the future in terms of looking ahead. You feel that sustainable alternatives will become the default.
I think from my perspective, I think the industry, like the material industry are moving towards sustainability. And, like people can actually clearly see that everywhere in the world. But I suppose the transitions won't be uniform. That means some areas sustainable material will become the default, and others the adoption will remain gradual due to I don't know like the cost and the complexity. So this shift will be driven by regulations, economics, and even like performance of the materials. And over time, as the better solutions emerge, adoption will naturally accelerate. So I think it's not the question of if people will choose the sustainable material or not. I think it's a matter of time, like how fast the shift will happen.
Your journey is, part of the growing strength of Southeast Asia's startup ecosystem. What do you feel about the startup ecosystem in Southeast Asia? And how do you
Southeast
feel in
Asia.
terms of the support that you get from, across the board, places like Singapore and other places?
I can see that the startup ecosystem in South Asia is getting stronger and stronger. And for me, for net zero pellet and areas carbon, we started in Vietnam. So for us, South Asia is our starting point. It's also the foundation for us to building and scaling the business. And in South Asia, for us particularly, we try to solve the waste problem. So in South Asia, the waste is abundant. In Vietnam is abundant. So Asia's also have the strong manufacturing base. So combined though is create a perfect environment for AirXCarbon and net zero pellets to develop and to validate solutions like the net zero pellet in real life, not just in a lab. Second, the challenging in South Asia, there are many, like problem and challenges is real and is very immediate. It pushed us to solve the problem in the supply chain, in the logistic, in the waste management. And within that context, I would say Singapore is like a hub for innovation, for startup. It's actually play a very strategic role in our growth. And I can share that we actually established a Singaporean entity from last year's. We try to merge it with the Vietnam one, and that entity would serve as a hub for us to connect with not only investor but also to expand our business in Singapore and like across the regions and like beyond that.
That's really great. So, winning the Thai Women Global Pitch competition was, obviously a significant milestone for you and your company. So, beyond this recognition
Yes.
and the $100,000 that you've got, how does this translate into tangible opportunities for AirX Carbon in terms of partnerships, funding, or market expansion?
For us, the winning is more than the recognitions. It actually give us the immediate and also the long-term opportunity and momentums. So in the short term, it gave us a capital for the working cap. It also gave us the opportunity to engage with, like many funds, partners. And we actually had in-depth conversation with many of them, like the impact fund or the VCs in India and Singapore, in the US. And if act as a part of our ongoing fundraisings, first of all. And then we also been approached by several potential partners. They are interested to distribute net zero pellets in other regions of the world. And they also also interested in become our partners in the franchising modules that we've been talking. And but beyond that, I would say the long term's a signal of credibility is position AirXCarbon and net zero pellet as a serious player in the fields, then it helps to build trust to investor, partners, and customer over time. So I would say why the immediate outcome is access and conversations, the long term is the momentum and the ability to scale faster with the right ecosystem around us.
Oh, that's really wonderful. So, all the best as you make further growth in your business within the region. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Mia. And all the best for your expansion into other areas and more fundraising and growing into other markets. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.